Right, and looks like we are live. Well, welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm joined by two guests today, and we will be joined by a fourth in roughly an hour's time. Our fourth guest, Charlotte, she just needs to get home from work, and then she'll be joining the stream. I'm joined by, and she's a TikToker as well as Emily. Who, oh crap! I can hear my own voice. I've got to pause the stream. Yeah, I think that's all good. I just heard my voice come out for a second there. I think it should be sorted
I think
now.
that was my phone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm joined by two guests right now, and then the fourth will be joining in about an hour. So on the left we have Todd, who is Emily's podcast co-host and has a degree in psychotherapy. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's something to psychology related. He's in the psychology field, and he's been a psychotherapist for 25 years, so he definitely has a lot of experience with, and a lot of his clients have like dating and relationship issues, so he's definitely got some insights there. And then I've also got Emily King, who's got a huge audience, a whopping 4.2 mil, I believe, on TikTok. So
2.2.
Oh, 2.2. Oh, not 4.2.
Thank you. I mean, I'll take it.
Well, it's still in the six figures, not
Yeah.
Seven figures.
seven figures. Sorry, yeah, seven figures, not five figures like myself at the moment. I'm almost at six figures. Yeah, get me to 100k, guys. It's like right around the corner. I've been on 90k for too long recently. But yeah, these are my two guests at the moment, and then the fourth will be joining in an hour. So I'll let you guys say a couple of words about yourself, and then we'll get going straight into the video, which is talking about niche markets mainly.
Yeah, hopefully some of my followers are making it over to YouTube. I do not put a lot of my content on YouTube, but as you were saying, I have a big following on TikTok. I started about 2 years ago, speaking to dating and what was going on in the current dating world and what I was experiencing personally, and gained a following pretty quickly, crazy enough. So a lot of the advice that I give is from personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've gained quite a following because typically you're relating and advocating for men, which is different.
Yes.
Than a lot of the content creators out there, that it's typically men kind of providing support and knowledge for other men, and then women with women. But you've talked about, and we know each other obviously, that you've had a lot of good men in your life, and you feel like they're kind of being underrepresented on TikTok anyways.
Yes, especially on TikTok. I mean, when I first downloaded the app, that's all I saw was women like bashing men. And I knew that wasn't my life experience. So I wanted to create content that said something different. And really, at the core of it, I just believe that women and men have a lot more similarities than what we realize. And I like to kind of bridge the gap there, instead of making it wider like a lot of content creators are doing right now. So
yeah, and
well,
she's killed it.
Well, you said that what is it, when you first joined TikTok, that it was mainly women bashing men. Well, based on recent events that's happened in the last couple of weeks, it seems it's only going to head back that way now, because all of the pro men well, not all of the pro men, but arguably the biggest creator in the space over the last 6 months has been banned completely off, I believe, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, TikTok. So he's completely gone. So it seems like the silence is about to get hammered down. I'm trying to be very careful with my words here, because when you say certain things about the wrong companies, then they come after you. So you got to be very diplomatic when you're talking about the big corporations. You don't want to be shouting at technically your boss in a derogatory manner. But anyway, this is digressing a bit. I think we should get straight to the main points of the video, which is niche market maxing. So for anyone who doesn't know what niche maxing, niche markets is, it's basically like any sort of characteristic that you have, mainly to do with your appearance, but there is some element of like hobbies and personalities and interests there as well, like such as religion, or certain ideological beliefs that are there as well. But it's mainly to do with your appearance, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So just to throw out a couple of examples, like ethnicity is one. Like there's been a big rise in the last few years about I believe it's called K-pop maxing, which is where guys of Asian descent try to like feminize. It's basically like the Asian version of being an e-boy. So it's a little bit more feminized, and it's these usually people have like skinnier builds, very lean, sharp jawlines, like e-boy haircuts, and so on and so forth. And there's plenty of other niche markets that we'll get to in the video, but this is going to be the main focus of the topic in this. So I'll just throw it back to you guys, like just to hear your initial thoughts on if you've ever heard of the term niche maxing, or do you ever give like advice pertaining that sort of thing?
So I hadn't really heard of it termed that way, but it makes total sense to me. Like, I feel like the example that my mind goes to is some women that like they love to date police officers or firefighters. Sometimes it's like either one. And then there's women I know that are like into tattoos, and then other times not, it's the opposite. So it totally makes sense, especially if you're looking for somebody with common interests, like let's say you're into anime, like you're gonna just relate more to somebody that also likes that. And if you can get into a niche somehow, whether that's through a specific dating app or gathering, social gathering in real life, like it skips over that part of like having to filter out individually, and instead you just have like this big filter, and you already know that you're going to kind of have a yes to your biggest thing that you want in somebody.
Yeah, so I think that's the overarching like thing that people are trying to achieve when it comes to niche market maxing, is that instead of like being in the massive mixer where you're competing against all of the chads, like all of the guys that are 6'3", jacked, like just better than you in every way, instead of competing against all of those for the normal like mainstream women, instead by niche, like targeting a niche, you're basically saying, okay, I'm going to forget about 95% of the women out there, because I know that they're immediately going to reject me because of this certain quality that I have about myself. Like a good example is e-boys. Like as much as certain black pill content creators out there are hyping them up, I've seen that happen in the last year or two, that like they think that e-boys are the ones who are going to take over. I don't necessarily think that's the case. Like I think that that's a niche, and it's targeting a small pool of the dating market, particularly teenage girls. And when you look at platforms like TikTok, that is like the main demographic. But I promise you, once women reach ages like 22 or above, like 25,
maybe even younger,
like anything above 22, even 20, anything above 20, all the way up to like bloody 80 years old, women aren't going to want e-boys. Like they that's it for women in their 20s, it mainly transitions into they just want a chad. Like they're not interested in the feminized e-boy. Like that's just for what teenagers on TikTok want.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting when you talk about that specific demographic, because typically Asian guys have it really difficult in the dating market, correct? And so it's almost kind of like with the K-pop kind of phenomenon, that they really just kind of leaned hard into some of the things that maybe again aren't seen as masculine, and try to pretty themselves up as much as possible. So kind of leaning into what their strengths are within that group that they're seeking to. Because there are women that are probably college age that are going to be into these type of guys. But I think it's if they tried to be ultra masculine, because from a genetic standpoint, especially when I mean, most of these guys are probably in their early 20s, I'm guessing, if not younger. It would kind of backfire versus saying, okay, you know what, I can't grow a beard, so I'm not going to go that direction. I'm just going to kind of glam it up as much as possible, and this is nothing new. I mean, when I was a kid, it was, the Backstreet Boys,
I was
or
just gonna say the boy bands.
yeah,
That was my
New
generation.
Kids on the Block, and it was
Yeah,
that same
like
thing.
all girls loved them. And probably when I was that age, like a
Mhm.
guy with a full beard, I'd be like, oh yeah, like no,
Yeah.
no. But like that changes because obviously I don't think the same now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Todd mentioned a good point when you said about like if a guy can't grow a beard, he might not be able to target a niche, like of some rugged masculine fella.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it is about playing to your strengths. So
Mhm.
do you have good beard growing genetics? Do you have good muscle building genetics? Do you have a facial structure that pertains itself to being a more like masculine rugged guy, or a more like e-boy sort of type? Like everyone's got like strengths and weaknesses, and I just want to make clear, I forgot I should have mentioned this at the very beginning, that people are saying that I'm lung maxing. I'm just going to put my pop filter down. I might need to turn my volume up for a second now as well. I forgot to put it down before I started this stream. Right, that should be a bit better now, apart from a bit quiet. So
Okay.
I'm already at
Well, I
max
mean,
volume.
imagine going the other way. Think about, that dude, the Liver King. We
I haven't heard of
he's
him, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, probably a lot of audiences. He's this guy who he only eats like animal parts, and he's just totally jacked. Like he'd be like a roid cell. But my thought process is that if that guy tried to be more like an e-boy, it would miserably fail.
Oh yeah,
If
100%,
he,
100%.
so if you just look at a photo of him, for example, you'll see like he's this guy who tries to. He's probably the most roided max guy out there right now, and he was playing to his strengths because a certain demographic of women find him attractive, and but it's something that is a complete opposite of these e-boys we're talking about.
Yeah, you just mentioned something that just sprung into my mind just now. Like people always talking about e-boys, but I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a fairly high, like it's a double digit percentage of men that will eventually go bald, or at least partially bald, and they have a balding gene. Like e-boy, if you're going to e-boy route now, you are like 70 or 80% hair, like at the moment. That is the main thing that's kind of carrying you. Like I've seen guys that are 5 out of 10, even 4 out of 10, but just because they've got like the amazing hair and they're like 18 years old, then women just go crazy for it, because that is mostly what e-boys kind of go for.
Mm-hmm.
And when these guys start going bald, then that is pretty much game over for them. And then when you compare that to somebody, say like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, who's the complete opposite
Mm-hmm.
of an e-boy, he's is that like masculine, typical masculine figure who's gym maxed. He's balding hasn't affected him in the slightest. Like you look at old
Mm-hmm.
photos of him from 15-20 years ago, when he was when he did have hair. He looks pretty much the same, if not better now, like compared to back then when he did have hair.
Yeah, I think there's few guys though that can really pull off the bald look, and they're usually like, I hate to say this, but when it comes to like pale white guys like myself, like I think that looks terrible. But if you have some kind of color to your skin, whether it be brown or black or whatever, I think it just ends up, being a better look. Like they can pull it off easier, especially if you have good beard growing potential, like that combination.
Hmm.
What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, I think men that just kind of take, I don't know, accept it, I guess, in some ways, and they just will like shave their head. Like I
Yeah,
think
of
that's a
course.
better look in general than, just trying to like hang on to the hair that you have,
Mhm.
or doing anything, or like, well, I guess a lot of guys wear hats too. That's what I see often,
Yeah, it's
at
such a
least like on
cope though.
social media.
It's such a cope. I mean, it's so obvious. If someone's wearing a hat all the time, like in
Yeah,
all their pictures, it's like,
yeah,
what are you hiding, right?
you kind of wonder.
Hmm.
But I think like embracing it is key, I don't think that that looks good, you know, or it feels good if you're just like trying to cover it. So yeah, like if you can't go without your hat,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, you're trying to, my dad, he went bald in his 20s,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just up top, and all of his life, and he still has it. He has like one side of hair that he grows out,
Oh
and then he
no.
does the comb over.
Still.
But I love him.
Okay.
I love
Yeah, that's
him.
very
Props, Emily,
important that you
Dad.
mention that. Like this
Yeah.
this is probably the most simple, but at the same time, probably one of the most misguided pieces of looks maxing advice that people just completely overlook. If you are balding, if you're anything past like a Norwood 3, and definitely so Norwood 4, just get rid of it completely. Do not be clinging on to the final strands. You just got to get rid of it and like embrace it. Try to put on some more muscle. Try to grow out a beard if you can. Try to get some tattoos so you can actually represent the bald look, because that's where you're heading right now. Like you're not going to be able to run e-boy game if you're bald. It's just not going to work. Like if you're not a masculine guy and you're bald, then you're screwed. Like I think that First Man explained it extremely well in a video. The point that he made was that if you're bald and you're masculine, it looks like your testosterone like is so high, and it's been so high for so many years that it's caused you to your hair to fall out. But if you're the opposite of being jacked, and you're like scrawny, and you're like not healthy looking, it looks like your testosterone is so low that it's caused your hair to fall out. So that's a bad look. So like having, some guys can pull off the bald look, but that's usually, well, I would say always, because they are this masculine figure. Like if they're not masculine and they're bald, then it always ends up hurting them.
Yeah, of course. Makes sense. I saw so many in the comments.
Yeah, somebody just asked a comment. Yeah,
Yeah,
donation comment. It said they missed the intro. You've not heard of Emily King? Okay, yeah. A lot of people on YouTube don't really follow TikTokers. They are kind of two separate platforms. There's not many much crossover really. But she's got a big following. I think she's one of, if not the most followed dating coach on the TikTok platform. It's got 2.2 million subscribers on TikTok. So. Yeah, and she does dating advice mainly for men. Well, you can explain it better than me, so I don't know why I'm the one talking.
Yeah, and I think like what you said, Todd, earlier is a good explanation, because I am not what you would expect, I guess, with a woman giving dating advice, especially on TikTok, because I'm like, I guess, one of the first ones seen on TikTok that oftentimes takes the man's perspective, and I'm speaking to that. And so I definitely have like a lot of male followers. I think it's at 90% right now, male. And I try to take the perspective of them oftentimes. And then a lot of times it's kind of like both perspectives, and just trying to kind of bridge the gap in what a man is trying to say versus what a woman is trying to say and what they both want. But a lot of times it's like me taking a woman's video, like I'll do a stitch of it, if you guys are familiar with that on TikTok, where I take another content creator's beginning part of the video, and then oftentimes it's a woman speaking her opinion, and then I stitch in afterwards, and I'm speaking more to the male perspective. And that's in attempts to like really bridge the gap and to have understanding on both sides.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, and I think your qualifications are A, that you're a woman, so you can speak from the woman's perspective. B, you're super intelligent. Like most people don't know you have a PhD.
Yeah.
And C, you've done it for a long time now, and you've gotten to the point where, for you coming up with content, you're very dialed in with kind of what's going on in the dating market and so on and so forth. And so I think it's really just the combination of all those factors and, just your life experience.
Yeah, I have like a odd experience, I guess, of generations, because before a couple years ago, I was married for 12 years. And so I was like out of the dating field completely. And so I had a little bit of experience like when I was a teenager, and then didn't have any. And then after my divorce, I was like thrown back into the dating world. And so I was going in it with like, I don't know, like a whole different thought process. I had no idea what I was entering. And so that is what I spoke to a lot of times, because I feel like I didn't have all that like toxicity built up over time, which a lot of people experience with dating. And I didn't have like that crazy amount of trauma of like a lot of breakups
Yeah.
going into it. So I feel like I had more of a, like a healthy perspective.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I actually have like a term for that now. Maybe you can rip off, Sam. But you know, you have the be first, just be first. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
just be last can be helpful too, meaning the fact that if you're an older generation and somebody like Emily who was married and she was essentially with one guy throughout all of her 20s and half of
Mhm.
her 30s, then it's one of those things where um, she's coming into it saying, okay, I was in a relationship and now I want to be in another relationship.
Mhm.
So it's you know, it's kind of the opposite, but at the same time you weren't toiling away in the dating market throughout those
Right.
times, so your kind of
Right.
mentality is almost kind of the same as when you were younger, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously you've had a big change in experience. Like is interesting like that you've been popped out of the other end after divorce. So then like the dating market
Yeah.
is almost a completely different place. Like I remember seeing stories a few years ago of like some guy who was in jail, like before like technology kind of took over the world, and then like when he came out like 20 years later, it was just a completely like eye-opening experience for him. I have a question that's like ever so slightly off topic, but I'm genuinely curious. Like, because obviously you've got a big following on TikTok, Emily. How
Mhm.
much of TikTok, like being a creator, would you say is just your looks?
Oh,
Or like
yeah.
to dumb the question down, like, do you think that you would
Yeah.
have anywhere near as big of a following, say, if you were overweight as a woman? Because I've always had
Ooh.
the impression that, like,
Yeah.
I would anticipate the answer to that would be like, no, not at all. You'd probably have 1/1000th of the size of the audience you have right now.
Probably
If you was like
maybe
some
because
unattractive
looks,
woman.
yeah, looks definitely like I feel like they do matter on TikTok. Although I've seen examples of women that may not be, anywhere near a 10, but they probably do have more women followers. So that might be why. I don't think that I would have the amount of male followers that I do potentially if, I was like, extremely overweight. I thought you were going to go a different way with that question because I am pretty like fairly modest, especially by TikTok standards. I dress in my videos as I do in day-to-day life. And so like my breasts are not like hanging out, and I'm not like turning around in front of my mirror because that's how I shoot videos like a lot of TikTokers do that are attractive. And so I have had it where a TikToker will take my content verbatim, will say the same exact thing that I do, but she will be like in half the amount of clothing. And anyone that follows me actually will know who this is, because she's not a huge creator, but she ends up popping up under their FYP, their For You page. And she does not get the amount of views that I do. So I think that speaks to my audience of men, that they like see through somebody that is purposely putting themselves all out there
just to get views
just
and
to get
attention, yeah.
views.
Well,
So like I think me just being myself and staying modest has actually helped in many ways.
that's what I was going to piggyback on, is that we're talking about niches,
Yeah.
and the niche that I've always seen you fill is that you're somebody that is very genuine and authentic, and also it's something where the niche specifically is kind of the girl next door.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And also like you as I know you personally, you're the same as you are off camera than you are on camera. You don't curse, which is, so you're just kind of like this really sweet girl next door type, and that's who you are. And I think that there's so many women on TikTok right now that just are selling their sexuality. It's so refreshing to get an intelligent woman who's advocating for men, but also is not who's attractive, but attractive in a way that isn't sexualizing yourself.
Right. And that's kind of the message that I want to send to women, is that like you do not need to turn into somebody like you see on TikTok often dancing in front of the camera. Like that's not who you have to be. Like there are plenty of men that want relationships and that like just value more modesty.
Yeah, I'm sorry to just cut you off there and not respond to any of the things that you've said, but I've seen a few comments come through that want to get back on topic. So thanks for bringing up all you said, but like a few people do just want to get back to talking about the niche market stuff. The next thing I have on my list about why I think that niche markets can be effective. Well, I think that when it comes to niche markets, it is about striking a balance, like because. For anyone who doesn't know, like I coined the term like niching up, as in that means that you're trying to broaden your options. So it means that you're trying to look more basic in order to appeal for a wider amount of people. But then niching down is the opposite. So that means that you're trying to modify your appearance in a certain way to appeal to a smaller subset of women, a smaller percentage of the population. So just like as an example of that, if a guy gets a tattoo or several tattoos like an arm sleeve, then that's obviously going to be a niche down because a lot of women are going to be turned off by that, and some women, like a small percentage of women, will be like, wow, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Like he looks like that bad boy type. He's a bit more masculine now because he's got that tattoo. I find him more attractive. So I think that's what it comes down to when it's about niche maxing. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I'm wondering though, from your perspective, is that, with your generation, there's a lot of people that have tattoos. I don't know what the percentages are, but it's pretty high versus, my generation is, much lower. And it's something that, it's one of those things where I'm wondering from your perspective, how much of an effect do you think it really has, unless someone really gets like full sleeves or, those type of tattoos versus just kind of having a tattoo here or there, because it seems so commonplace now within that younger generation.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like if somebody gets one or two tiny tattoos, like, one on his back that's not even visible when he's got his shirt on, then, that's not going to change his appearance one bit, and he's like not really going to have the niche isn't really going to have an effect at all. But if somebody has an entire sleeve on his arm and he's jacked and it looks really badass, then that's going to obviously like target a certain niche because he's got that massive sleeve on him now. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, sure. And so what do you think about, and this may be a little off topic, but it's still close, like that a lot of women now today are getting more, typically masculine tattoos, like getting their own arm sleeves or stuff on their arms or, things of that nature. What's your thoughts about that? And, because I think you and I've talked privately, that's not something that either of us are really particularly attracted to, but it's something that seems to be more evident, especially like in gym culture. I just see a lot of women with, like kind of very typically masculine tattoos.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And in fact, it actually like leads perfectly pretty much into the next thing that I was going to talk about anyway, which is that I think a massive part of niche market maxing is trying, not just trying to target a subset of, women or men in this case, for the example that you gave about women getting tattoos. But it's about trying to target a subset that will also be high quality. So in my opinion, like this is a brilliant example that you gave, because if a woman gets a tattoo, or several tattoos, or like even a sleeve, for God's sake, like God forbid if she gets that, then I think all that's going to do for her, like if she was on Tinder or dating apps, she's just going to get a load of guys that are wanting to like smash her, because I think that when guys see tattoos, especially when they overdo it, like one or a couple like isn't that bad, but if it's like significant coverage of a woman having tattoos, guys see that and they think that the woman is more likely to be promiscuous. Do you think that's
Really?
What do you think, Emily? Because
I don't know. I would have assumed that like a guy that likes to have a lot of tattoos himself would maybe be looking for a girl that also has a lot of tattoos herself.
I'm just looking at the live chats now, and they're agreeing with me a lot. Well, obviously, that's no
Are
testament
they?
for anything, because
Yeah.
like this is my audience anyway, mainly who's tuned in. So you can obviously guess that they're going to be agreeing with me. But like they're just saying that it's like red flag. It means she smokes cigarettes if she has
Oh,
tattoos. Yeah, like I don't know. I think there is some elements of truth to it. Like obviously, not all women with like tattoo coverage are gonna be in a bad spot in life, but I think
yeah.
generally speaking, it does usually it does have a correlation, like at least in my experience, that the woman isn't in the best spot, to put it as politely as possible.
Yes. Well, I can honestly say, like, from being a clinician, that when I work with women and men, but especially women that have like a lot of tattoos, especially like chest pieces and anything with on the neck or hands, it's there's also people that have been through a lot of trauma, and I think that's how they cope with it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not sure how
and
much truth there is to that theory. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I didn't realize you was going to say another point on top of that, but I was just going to interject and say that there is this theory that they say that people get tattoos, particularly women, to cover up like emotional scars or problems that they're dealing with in their own personal life, and it's basically just a coping mechanism to cover up that damage. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that though.
yeah, I would say that there's probably truth to that. I don't think it's something that they're in touch with cognitively. I think it's one of those things where, in some ways, it's almost akin to kind of, and a lot of people may not like me for this comment, but kind of self-harm, where they get that pain in the body, which then kind of relieves that emotional pain. And that's kind of what things like cutting does, is
Mhm.
that it distracts, and there ends up becoming an emotional release. And so it's something, with tattoos, it can be a similar feeling. And there is a lot of times, again, I know I'm generalizing, but some impulsiveness to it as well. Like when you're getting drunk, even though I know that a lot of tattoo artists don't uh, tattoo people when they're drunk, but after breakups, that's when you'll see a lot of times women getting tattoos, or doing something drastic to their hair. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced that with any of your friends, Emily.
Oh, there's always talk about
Oh,
that,
you
like,
talk about the
when
blue hair
somebody
women.
goes blonde.
Oh,
Yeah, either that or
I
shaving
thought
your
Todd
head,
was
or
I thought Todd was referring mainly more to blue hair women or purple hair
Blue
women,
hair.
the ones who
Yeah.
not a natural color. So if a woman dyes her hair blonde, that's quite common. I don't really see a problem with that. But if a woman dyes her hair one of the crazy colors, like if it's a rainbow colored or blue colored, something like that, something unnatural, then I've seen that there's a correlation there, which isn't necessarily a causation. Like there might necessarily be a
yeah,
causation there, but there's definitely a correlation with the women that have done that, and not being the highest quality.
Well, I think so. Try to get into the mindset of a woman that does that, right? So to me, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of people like kind of look at our looks as a woman, right? So there's pressure to kind of stay within the bounds of what our culture says is beautiful. And talking about like a lot of tattoos or dyeing your hair blue is definitely like outside of the norm.
Exorbitant piercings too.
Piercings, yeah, they're like just very obvious. So to me, I think that's a sign that that woman, okay, maybe she's gone through something, but she has arrived at the mindset of screw it, I'm just going to do what I think looks good, and it's just like her creative mind that pulls forward past any kind of like society bounds, and she just like kind of just does what she wants to do. And yeah, that could be maybe a sign of something that she's been through. It doesn't, I think, necessarily mean that she's currently still going through it. She might
Sure.
be like really healing or already kind of healed from it. But she just kind of has tossed everything off to the side and is saying, I want to do what I think looks good on me. But I'm wondering, like, what is really the difference between a woman doing that and a man? Then, like a man that gets a bunch of tattoos.
Well,
on
this
him.
this pay for chat pretty much asks the exact same question, or at least alludes to the point that you was about to ask within your question, which is that women don't understand the value of purity because it's not a quality that they seek themselves in men, whereas men do seek out purity in women, obviously. And like, it is a bit of a stretch to equate tattoos and dyeing your hair a bizarre color to purity, but as I said earlier, there is definitely correlations that I have witnessed in my experience that shows, generally speaking, that if a woman has done those certain things, such as getting tattoos and dyeing their hair rainbow colored, then there is a correlation with her like being lower purity. So do you think, what's your thoughts on that argument? Because I've often heard the same thing about women who brag about the fact that they earn X amount of money or they've got X status position in a job. Are they extrapolating their own things that they would find attractive in men and attributing to themselves and bragging about themselves because they think that's what men also want? Is that what's going on?
I think that's a solid point because it's, sort of the idea of them being in their masculine energy, right? Like, if they make a certain amount of money and they're this independent woman that don't need no man, she, and then she kind of can be in the same mindset of I'm going to do whatever looks good to me. I can see how that correlates to her, getting tattoos, dyeing her hair, being fine with not dating a man. But I don't know if that necessarily correlates with her purity. I mean, I can see how it can look like that because of like what our culture shows us and what's on like social media and what's in movies.
Well, that's a good
It's
point
like,
because even if there is no correlation whatsoever, all that matters at the end of the day really is what's people's perceptions of it.
right.
Well, there's
Well,
stereotypes
that's
and
true.
everything, and if the media perpetuates a certain stereotype, then that's going to be people's perceptions because that's what people perpetuate.
Yeah. You make a solid point with that because you're right. All it does matter is perception in the end, what the man thinks of someone that's standing in front of him.
Well, and to also talk about what you were going to say, Emily, about your question, I think that a lot of men do get tattoos for the same reasons, as far as depression and going through really hard times and wanting to kind of memorialize that. But I think the perception is that generally in society that it's a more masculine type endeavor, and so a guy potentially can look badass with that, where yeah, but I do think it really comes from the same place, but it's perceived differently. So that's I would say the main difference, because I have guys that I've known that people have come up to them and say, why would you ruin your body with a tattoo? So you guys get this as well, depending on where you live, of course.
Yeah, I think like I knew a guy that got like a dog paw print on his chest,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, like I think he was pretty young when he got that, and it's like, I thought, are you gonna get like every dog's paw print like that you have as an owner? Like I get it's
Yeah,
something that you go through.
sure.
But I think that people do have, like, I don't have any tattoos on myself, and I don't know, like, I probably wouldn't go for a guy that has like a ton of tattoos, because I probably am categorizing him in my head as like a different person from me that would have like maybe, different wants and needs and different values in life, that I just wouldn't like go for him unless for some reason I got to know him ahead of time, and that changed my mind about him.
Well, think about the dating market. Like, it was a good thing that you just added that caveat at the end there, because it does open that door to the question of, like, when you look at the current dating market, what are people judging people based on? Looks, obviously. So if somebody has all of these preconceptions, whether they're fact-based or not, or they could just be completely made up, then people will get rid of them, because it's, they're ruling people out on dating apps. Like, I've heard, like, I think women are the worst culprits for this, no disrespect, but like, just because when you look at the numbers, like, they are having way more options on dating apps, so they can afford to be a lot more picky. Like, I've actually, like, one of the most eye-opening experiences any guy can have, I recommend all guys should do this at least one time in their life, but if you've got any female friends, ask them, well, if they're on online dating apps, watch them swipe, as in a certain conversation with them, ask them to open up their dating app and then just see like their swiping behavior, and have them talk through their thought process as well with it. And that is an extremely eye-opening experience for guys, because I've actually done it a couple of times with women that I'm quite comfortable with, quite close friends with, and they would swipe left on guys for the most stupidest of things, and they would give reasons for it as well. And the most, like, well, this is how it usually goes down. So 90% of guys is a straight no swipe, like instant left swipe. They wouldn't even consider him. They just take one look at the guy's face, and then it's an automatic no. And then the next like 5 to 8%, they have a scroll through their profile. So they might look at the second photo and the third photo. They might have a look at the bio. They might see what he's got going on in his life. And then they would say, oh, he's got a cat in this photo. Oh, I don't like cats. He's got to be a left swipe now. I don't like cats, so I'm going to have to get rid of him. And it would just be the stupidest reason that they might have, pied off some guy who could have potentially been 2-3 points better looking than the girl herself. But she would still get rid of him. And it goes back to the fact that women, even if they are unbelievably picky and they only swipe right on 1% of the available options on dating apps, they're still going to have options. Most guys, if they even tried anything remotely like that, they're going to get no options. So it just shows like the amount, the degree that women can be picky on these dating apps. Like, what do you guys think of that? Have you had any of those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that women can afford to be picky on dating apps. And I've seen it. I think there was a trend like a year ago on TikTok of women on dating apps seeing photos of like men holding fish. And I guess that was a thing. Like, that was a negative thing. They were telling men, don't put in photos of you with a dead animal, or with group photos, right? Where she couldn't tell like which one it was that was actually on the dating app. So yeah, there's definitely like particular things that I've heard. For me, like, I think that as long as like reasoning is sound, like, yeah, it makes sense, because they can be picky because they can afford to, they have more options, but it should be like, they should think it through. Like, they shouldn't just swipe because they see a cat and they don't like cats. Like, what if it's not even his cat? And like, what's the reasoning there? Are you allergic, or
But my point is, what's the price to be paid if they are extremely picky, as the data shows as well. Like, I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I believe men swipe right on around 50% of profiles. Women swipe right on 10 times less than that. It's around 5%. But what is the price to be paid from being that picky? In my opinion, there is minimal consequences, because the failing point for women isn't the first barrier. It's not getting matches. It's not even having guys message them. They get plenty of messages. The barrier that women fail at the most, I think, is having guys date them properly with a willingness to commit. And that's kind of where they're being left in the dark. So, even if women are extremely picky, opening up their options to, maybe take on the guy who's got a cat in his photo, that's not really going to change anything, because now she's just going to go on dates with guys who don't care about her twice as much as she was beforehand.
Yeah, so it ends up being, so women are extremely picky, which if guys were in the same position, we'd be the same way. Let's put that out there. But what ends up happening, and this is, kind of a basis for a lot of your videos, is that women are with the guys who have the abundance, and then, they pump and dump them. And then they have this really negative outlook towards men, because these men are just getting so many opportunities that, especially if they're young, they're just not ready to settle down, and they want to have these experiences. And, and guys have a lot of testosterone running through them. So it's one of those things where it hurts women for making those choices, because then they don't end up with somebody that probably has long-term potential for them.
Right. Well, I think women should have standards, but they should be standards for the right reasons. They should be the right things. Like, again, going to the cat, like, it shouldn't be about the cat. It should be about, like, what's he saying in his bio? How does he treat you when he's messaging you?
Or even, like, for example, how he looks. Sorry to cut you off, but
yeah,
like if he's got like shirtless pics or stuff like that, and let's say he is like this really high tier guy, but still he's, sending, kind of F-boy vibes out there.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where a woman may still swipe on him because he is that Chad or whatever, but at the same time, the odds of her landing a relationship with him is going to be slim.
So that's an example of she's being picky with the wrong things.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
So from your perspective, what would be a good niche or something that if you saw with that in a guy's profile that would say that's a green flag, or some things?
So this comes to mind because I've seen it in the past when I have had a history of being on dating apps, is like, I'm total relationship girl. I don't want anything else other than that. So if a guy even has in his bio that, like, he's a family man, like anything like that, and then he maybe lists some of his hobbies that he enjoys, and I'm big into like wanting to have certain hobbies that match, like that's what I'm looking for, compared to like what I see as red flags is like a lot of shirtless gym pics, like a lot of selfies versus photos of him being out with his friends. Like, I think that's more important. That's a green flag. Him with his friends, him with his family, versus him like by himself, in a gym mirror.
Yeah, like, see, this is brilliant that we're getting back to the niche market point. And yeah, this was actually a point that I had on my phone before the discussion that we was going to talk about, because I think this is one of the biggest points when it comes to niche markets, which is that for men, this is advice for men, that if you're on dating apps, well, I wouldn't recommend going on dating apps anyway, but if you are, attractive enough to warrant picking it as an available route, then you want to niche max in a certain way that is going to funnel higher quality women, because such as the examples you gave, if a man is giving like F-boyish vibes in his profile, if he's smoking, if he has hobbies such as like clubbing and going out to bars, getting hammered every Friday night, if he has things like that in his profile, then, it'd be my guess, like he's going to get matches if he's attractive enough, if he's a 7 or 8 in looks, but it'd be my guess that a lot of those are going to be lower quality. He's not going to be getting the higher quality ones. Well, I would go one step further and say that Tinder pretty much is all low quality. Like, I would stay clear of it in itself. But let's say if a guy is on an app like Hinge or Bumble, where there might actually be a few high quality women out there, if she sees those red flags, the F-boy vibes and, the other examples, then she's going to swipe left on that person, even if she would have otherwise said yes because he's attractive enough, and if he had, relationship material signals in his profile.
Yeah, I mean that's why ideally it would probably be, somebody that was both good looking, but also kind of gave off those vibes that they're stable and relationship material simultaneously.
Yeah. Well,
And
it depends what people are
right.
looking for. Like if a guy is,
Mhm.
looking to date casually and he's not interested in going on 6 dates with a woman only for her to say that she's not interested anymore, then if that guy, is looking to date casually, then by all means, make your profile like as F-boy vibes as possible,
Mhm.
because then you're just going to
Sure.
funnel through to the
Mhm.
lower quality or lower purity women, but some of those might still be attractive, and let's be honest, that's all men are really looking for when they are just looking to smash. So if they just do that, then it's a matter of rinse and repeat, funnel through to the loose women on dating apps, and get them to come over on the first date, and then
Mhm.
it's just all downhill from there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm wondering, what, again, that I think is broken down by demographics as well. As I think as guys get older, they don't have that tendency as much. They're more looking to have more of a relationship, I would think. Um, Guys who are mature, anyways. Um, but what about, when we're talking about niches, and just in general, as far as, your kind of presentation or, you know, the activities that you engage in, because we were talking, before this, and it's also something about, saying, okay, like, and I know this is going to sound, blue pilled as hell, but it's like leaning into like the best version of yourself, and then, putting yourself in environments. So if you're physically active, and that's one of the things that's who you are, you take a spin class or take a yoga class where it's going to be 90% women. Um, so it's not varying for who you are as a person, but at the same time you're going to, be in a warmer environment than you would be online. But also it's something where you're saying, and this could be anywhere from being at the gym to being a gamer, or being into something really different like Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Like, lean into that and find a Dungeons and Dragons group that has women in it or something. I don't know, even
I
if that
don't think you would
exists.
get many women into playing Dungeons and Dragons, but
Probably
yeah,
not.
yeah,
You
but
get my point
yeah,
though,
yeah,
as far
yeah. I
as
know,
like there's
yeah,
some nerdy
Like it's
things.
better
yeah.
for them to do that rather than like go out to the bar and try to
Yes.
meet somebody by like
Yeah.
cold approaching them, because they're just not, that's not their environment. You're
What?
not going to find the right person there.
Well, I wouldn't say that this is niche market maxing, but it is very, very similar, and it is the same principles being applied. That, like, I would say this is like more pick your environment wisely maxing, if that's even a
Hmm.
thing. That
Mm.
might have been just a term that I've made up. But like, you get the idea
Hmm.
anyway. That yeah, if you're trying to approach women in nightclubs, on Tinder, and in grotty bars, then chances are you're gonna be running into the not so high quality people out there. But if you surround yourself with people in higher quality environments, like I think I talked about this a couple of videos ago, that just in my experience, going to the gym, obviously, I have no idea what the purity levels are like for women who go to the gym. Like, I don't know if they're good relationship material or not, or not, but just in terms of attractiveness, women in the gym are some of the highest attractiveness, or at least average attractiveness, that I've seen. Like the average person in woman in a gym is magnitudes higher than the average woman in the street. That's what I've seen. Because when you look at the connotations of what a woman would be like if she's in the gym, she takes care of her body. She, wants to try and be healthy. She's trying to, get into as good a shape as she can. She's putting in effort to her appearance. It's got all of those positive connotations. So that explains why the most attractive girls that I see on a day to day tend to be in the gym.
Yeah, well, let's be honest too, that you know, the gym for both men and women is looks maxing,
Yeah,
and it's kind of its purest form. So it's one of those things where I agree with you that, that's probably where you're going to find the most, kind of attractive women overall, especially, with the obesity crisis that we continue to go in, that people are kind of fighting back against that. And so, and it also shows um, discipline and consistency, and that you value taking care of yourself.
Yeah, well,
which
you
I
go
think is
to
a high
the
quality
gym
value.
more than me, don't you? So you must be able to speak up upon this like with even more glaring evidence. Like, do you think that the most attractive women that you see on a day to day are the ones at the gym compared to say like at the supermarket or anywhere else?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's people are in all stages of uh where they are in their fitness level at the gym. So, obviously there's going to be some people that are still, new and, but I've seen some, on even TikTok, some amazing transformations of people. So like for the people who aren't in great shape, and are just starting out, I give a lot of credit to, because it can be a pretty intimidating environment. But yeah, what I typically see is the same people over and over again. And when it comes to women, it's something where, yeah, of course, at the gym, I think you're going to see a higher quality as far as attractiveness, and more disciplined person than if you went to the bar every Friday night,
Hmm.
or the supermarket for sure. So I think, that's a good environment. But like Emily said, which I agree, is that if you're not this gym person, like for you, you're a runner, and like a running group like might be better for some people because they may have a more natural predisposition or ability to run. So almost every like decent town has running groups that you can join. That's just another example.
Well, in my experience, I think that there's way too many men in sports. Like some people say in the comments of my videos that like just join a sports group. Just join a sports group and try and date some women there because then that's a warm approach. It'll be easier. But in all of the sports that I've played, like I've played football, rugby, I've done running, and I've done all of those for several years. And every single club that I've went to for those, the best ratio was running, which is 2-for-1, man to woman. But even that's quite bad. Like,
Yeah.
but you can imagine rugby and football. That's like 99%. Men to women. Like you're not even going to be interacting with women if you go to a sports club like that. The best that you could get is maybe if like you go to the pub a lot after the matches or training sessions, and then you might have some opportunities within interacting with women that are there locally anyway. That could be a good route. But most sports clubs, guys, like you're pretty much doing it recreationally and that's it. There's no dating prospects there. The only exceptions to that obviously is if it's something like yoga or dancing maybe, or
Like
ice
Zumba,
or ice skating, like anything that's very female focused sport, then that might be the only chance. But then if I whenever people have said about these ideas, I've always been a bit suspicious because I would think if I was a woman and if I was in one of these classes and there's this single guy who's trying to chat up with the ladies, I'd be a bit put off by that. I'd be thinking like, oh, it's a bit strange. Like this, single guy has just turned up to the yoga class on his own. Like, is he just here to try and pick up as many women as he can? Like, would you think that was a bit suspicious? Or either of you, that's an open-ended question.
I feel like that's happened to me. Like I've been in a class. It hasn't been Zuma. It was something else. It was like some kind of cardio fitness class, but there was like one or two guys, but I remember the one guy because he was there all the time. I guess I saw him as more of just like this friendly guy. I guess maybe I saw him as a friend more than anything, and I think most women there did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
so
here's the thing. I mean,
friend, you mean
this is
normie? He was a normie.
I guess. Well, for me personally, he was like much older than me.
sub
So maybe
five.
that's why,
Oh.
like it wasn't.
Yeah, I think that it honestly goes back to kind of black pill ideology. Like I think if you're a good if you're a top tier guy and you go to a yoga class, you're gonna probably do well. But I've seen some guys in Zumba classes when I walk by, and there's always like a couple of guys who are
Oh,
kind of overweight
Charlotte's
and
asking to
bald.
join. Sorry to interrupt, but Charlotte's just
Oh.
Okay,
asked to
cool.
join, so I'll allow her into the stream. So I might need to jig the things around.
Okay.
I might need to put the live chat to the side But anyway, carrying with your point anyway while I sort this out.
Yeah, so my point was is that when it comes to those classes, it really, I think, does have to do with your own presentation, because I think, again, if it's overweight, older bald guy in a class full of young women, like, he's gonna be laughed at probably. So
Yeah, we're just friend zoned.
I don't know if
and I think that there's a big element of poisoning the well if somebody goes down such route, because obviously if a guy tries it on with one of the women, then like the other woman, because it's a warm environment, they're going to catch on. Like either the woman tells the other people in the group directly, or if like the other people just on look and they see it, and that like the guy is trying to be a womanizer in that environment, then that's going to look bad on him. So there is a big element of poisoning the well, but the only way that he can kind of get around that is if he just like bounced from group to group to group, like just took his chances in each one, and then if he poisons the well in one sports yoga group, then he can just move on to the next one. But then this is getting into quite very, very like gamey sort of territory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to like drag this on, because I know you've been waiting there for a couple of minutes. Oh, you're on mute, by the way. But I'll give you a proper introduction now. Yeah. So I'd like to welcome to the stream another TikTok dating coach. Do you identify as a dating coach or no?
I wouldn't say so. And I think that is kind of something that makes me a bit relatable, just in the sense that I started making content on TikTok, just about dating as a whole. And I think just, being kind of this average person who's kind of been through the trials and tribulations, as we call it, of modern dating, having, a very almost like neutral take on things, is what's made my content, garner a following, have a lot of people interested. Just to give kind of a background, started making a video because a friend of mine, we had a debate over what the talking stage is when dating. I always say, like, when you've been on a date, it's dating. She insisted it was talking, proved a point over TikTok, and then it became a whole niche over TikTok. And then it became, very, middle of the road, very much just like positive. How can we all have a better dating experience? How can we find the right person? Have always found too, as I would watch TikToks going into it, just everyone's advice, it always just felt so toxic. Like so many women saying like, all men are terrible. I disagree with that so much. Or people saying like, all women are terrible, or just very like ad hoc niche advice that I really think the best advice almost is the most boring. So I've found a way to make boring advice fun, in the sense of just having visual aids. I made silly PowerPoints and stuff to go through it, and I have fun with it. I love my male following a lot, just great people. And yeah, I'm all about positive advice, making sure people have a good experience. Dating should be fun, is how I believe things should go. So yeah, that's what I'm all about. But yeah, kind of that average person kind of thrown into things. And I think that is relatable also in the sense of just, kind of out there. I don't follow like any kind of ideology. I believe my mind can be changed. I like to learn new things. Yeah.
Is it... Yeah, thanks for saying all of that first and foremost, but just quickly, is it possible for you to adjust your mic in any way? Because
this is my first time doing
it's just too loud. Are you able?
Okay.
Yeah. Are you able to turn it down, because it was like really blaring out? Well, at least for me it was. I'm not sure if anyone else experienced that as well, but just like turn it down a fraction if possible.
Yeah. Let me do that. I'll stop talking.
Because like otherwise, like I think that my volume is like okay, but Todd and Emily, like just when I've been listening to the stream, like I've been hearing them at a normal volume, but then yours was kind of just a step above. It seems like you muted yourself at the moment, but don't mute yourself, but just try to lower the volume if possible.
Okay. I'll do that. This is my first time doing one of these. I don't want to hurt anyone's ears.
Oh, you sound fine to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it sounded normal on our end, but
yeah. So one of the things
so maybe yours needs going up a bit. I'm not sure, but it should be fine. Nobody said anything in the comment section saying that it's like really bad, so I think we'll leave it. Like if you can't figure it out in the next 10 seconds, then just forget about it. But Todd, you was about to make a point.
Yeah, I was gonna just disagree with Charlotte that she's a normal person, because she has some incredible charts that she's done, that are very thorough and break down a lot of how dating works. And anybody who's interested should definitely check out her TikTok channel, because she goes really in depth into different charts. And it's something where, I've been a therapist for 25 years, and I've learned a lot from her, in this current dating market, as far as her ability to break things down in a very kind of user friendly manner.
Thank you. That's a huge compliment. Yeah, like if I haven't said it yet, I'm flattered to be here, honored to be here, and in the presence of the three of you and all your wonderful listeners. So yeah, hopefully, I'm excited to learn from all of you.
Well, just to update you, what we was talking about just before you got onto the stream, well, the whole topic of the discussion has been niche markets focused. Well, mainly, like maybe like 25% of the time we've been deviating onto other random stuff, and people have been giving me all kind of stick in the comments for saying get back on track, wheat now, get back on track. But we've been mainly focusing on niche markets, and it was interesting because when I had a look at some of your presentations before the stream, and one of the things that you was talking about in one of the videos was like this idea that looks are actually quite subjective, and based on my content, I would argue mainly the opposite. I would say that looks is mostly like 90% objective, and then the last 10% is subjective. And then that last 10% is kind of what we've been talking about in this stream, like the niche sort of market stuff. So, some women only go for like guys that are e-boys. Some women only, go for guys that are exceptionally tall, or have a certain quirk in their appearance, guys with beards, guys with long hairs, guys with tattoos, and so on and so forth. And there's a million different things like that. So like that's kind of what I believe in, is in the last 10% of the equation when it comes to women rating guys' looks is like their own personal preferences. So that might bump up a guy who's a 6 to a 7 if the man fits. I think you get where I'm getting at here. Yeah.
Totally get where you're getting at. I disagree. I think a lot of women have a type. I think that's a huge thing. And maybe that's just because of I don't know if it's because I'm almost 30, so that might be part of it, where you kind of figure out your type, you figure out what you're interested in, bloom where you're planted, and you find out what you like and what works for you. I think, just for example, I live in Austin, Texas, so big city in Texas. So you see, I have a handful of friends, and I would say like my type as well is I love like a country. I love the boots, I love the hat, and that's a type of guy where if you're interested in a guy who's very city forward, you might not like that, and then vice versa. Like I've never really gone for like the clean cut like city guy. Like I've always liked more rugged, and it's interesting just how everyone's type is different. And I think for the most part, there is that kind of baseline level of attraction, but there's also your type, your niche, your interests, and also just gravitating toward what is familiar to you, and what feels safe to you. I think something that I noticed as well, and maybe this has to do with more dating apps and whatnot, is just coming across someone just kind of having that feeling of safety. Like, is this a safe person? I think, no matter what a person looks like, if you go on a dating app and you see, the mirror picture and it kind of looks scary, like, oh, could this person murder me? That's something where it would be, no matter, how big the abs are, it would be an immediate like left swipe. So that kind of thing, I think.
We was actually talking about exactly that before you joined. But I'm glad you said that second to last part about that you mentioned like the term baseline, that you got to have at least a baseline, because I think I've seen so much content being produced about types, like, and that's the thing that you was talking about at the beginning, like, as in people have a type and you got to find out what your type is. But I think they only go so far. Like, how far do you think types go? Because if a woman says she likes guys with curly hair, and then there's a guy in a bar, say, with curly hair, if this guy is 5'6", a 3 in the face, and he's overweight, then his curly hair doesn't make a difference in the slightest. She's still going to see him as just an ugly dude, and she's not even going to consider him. She would pick a straight-haired guy who is, you know, above average or way above average looking all day of the week, compared with the ugly guy with curly hair. Like, what do you think of that?
I think I would ask, where did she meet this guy, and what does he do? What's he all about? Because I do think there is that full package. I think, and if we think of swipes, if we think of, or just, you know, you've talked about like that cold approach, warm approach. I think that context can matter a lot. I think, you know, something that, you know, women will look for is, you know, what does he do? I think, I know you've talked about like, you know, swipes, and, you know, with men, it's a lot of times it's just, you know, right swipe, right swipe. Women, they're more selective. I think with women, it's a little bit less animalistic and a little bit more full package. You know, you scroll down, you see doctor, you know, that they go up a few points, like that kind of thing. So that it really depends on the context. Like if you meet someone, you know, out and about, and you meet at a professional networking event, you know, this person's successful, safe, established, has a good social network, that would play a role in your attraction. If you were on a dating app, you know, you'd scroll, and if you saw, you know, a career that impressed you, you know, you might look past something that people would say isn't traditionally part of being like conventionally attractive. I think that full package does matter. That feeling of safety, security. I mean, looks is a factor, but I think it's that full package that does matter a lot. Yeah, context of how you meet them can also play a role in kind of, you know, knowing if this giving that baseline attraction some weight too.
Yeah, just one more question, because I want to give Todd and Emily a chance to speak as well. But I just have one more question for you, Charlotte. Like, what do you think of? Have you ever heard of people say like my type? Well, not this. This is like kind of the meme. Type equals Chad. So as in, like, if you asked 100 different girls, you know, describe to me your type, you could bet a good 60 or 70 of them would say, oh, I like guys above 6 feet, with good hair, lean body, good jawline, basically tall, dark, and handsome. So, like, you know, even when women describe their type, it's all describing basically the Chad. Do you think there's elements of truth to that?
I mean, I always divert away from the word Chad, because just the term Chad always just has this connotation of just not a nice person. I hope I'm not offending anybody.
Oh no, it's rampant.
Oh gosh, this person's gonna give me problems.
It's rampant in this community. It's rampant in my channel in the comment section.
I apologize.
It doesn't have any personality connotations. It's like Chad in the context of my channel is literally only means good looking. That's all it means. Yeah. So going based on that definition, like, the question's the same.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think too, there's that. I mean, I like a little bit. Maybe it's just because I'm, you know, I like to, you know, have the thought in my mind that I could say, like, let's stop at like a Burger King and grab a burger and not feel like we're doing, you know, like, let's meal prep tomorrow. So I mean, I think there's some of like my type element to it. Like I said, that as you get older, it's like you look for like that more compatibility match. I think everyone kind of has their thing that they're interested in, as far as, you know, like some superficial traits, but I think there's some women, it's just not a big deal to them. Like I never had anything against bald guys. Like I think it's a look. Like I always had a crush on Bruce Willis, like growing up. So that's something.
Would you have a crush on Bruce Willis now? Because he's like, last time I saw him, he's like put on a load of weight. See, this is what a lot of people talk about, is then when Bruce Willis was young, like, he was a Chad. And same goes with people like Dwayne The Rock Johnson and who's that other guy, Jason Statham. Like, these are all Chads in spite of their balding. Like, I bet, you know, I know this is just because the media, like, the perceptions that they're always going to portray as Chad, no matter what they look like. Like, you're going to have bald Chad, you're going to have skinny Chad, you're going to have jacked Chad, you're going to have short Chad, you're going to have everything. Like, look at Tom Cruise, he's like 5'7", but he's unanimously considered attractive by women in spite of his height because he's just a Chad. So, like, do you see what I'm getting at here? Is in, like, I bet that you would be turned off by, like, most bald guys because they're not a Chad. Like, it's not got anything to do with the baldness. It's more to do with the fact that they're not a Chad.
Okay, I would need to get more context on on Chad. That like I think in my mind, like when I hear the term Chad, it's like, oh, like that's the when people joke about, you know, the name like Karen being the one that, you know, calls the manager. And when I hear Chad, I think of, oh my gosh, this guy is going to be an awful date. Like he's not going to be nice. So that's the thought process I have. I also maybe think of I don't know, like I've been on like bachelorette parties where we go to like we go to I've done that for bachelorette parties. We go to they go to the dance with Magic Mike stuff, trying to be not crude. And you know, sometimes it's just they're the most peak like male, you know, the 6 feet tall, the hair, the abs, and there's just something that feels a bit like unsafe, like reckless, like just it wouldn't be someone I would want to date. You know, there's something where it's like, oh, like there's the fantasy, but you know, beyond that room, it's kind of like, you know, like it's not the same as something that would feel a bit, you know, safe, like safer, kinder. Like there's a look that comes with that, I would say. Does that make sense? Is that an interest? Is that
it does make sense. But I'm just going to put that to the side for a second because I know that Todd and Emily's been sitting tight for the last 10 minutes or so. I do want to give them an opportunity to talk quick. So what insights? I'm sure you've got plenty to say based on, you know, because there was a lot of points that we've been raising. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the last point that you raised, was, I don't know, you could almost say, well, most women would probably point to a guy and say that maybe she's not attracted to him. Like, because most guys aren't in that category of what you're saying is a Chad. So whether he's bald or not, like, I understand your point of if he's bald, it matters more if he's like a Chad, yes or no. But that's kind of even with any
that's always been my stance.
Like, take the baldness out of it.
Yeah, that's always been my stance. As in, like the type stuff that women, you know, bang on till the cows come home about. Like that's only the cherry on top. It's not even the cream on top. Like the main thing what women are looking at is the guys. You know, it always comes back to sub 5. I've used this acronym for like over a year now on my channel. Short, ugly, bald, fat, inches, vulnerable, ethnicity. Those are the things that like matter the most, and then like the cream on top, or the cherry on top, sorry, that like comes after all of that stuff is the type things that women often say about, oh, so I like a guy with blonde hair. Oh, I like a guy with big muscles. Like, you know, these are all of the extra stuff, but the guy's got to have the initial baselines ticked before he can worry about any of the type stuff.
Well, I think Charlotte is saying the same point in that the baldness isn't keeping her from dating a guy, you know, like that's not a negative against him, that she would go for the guy that's bald.
Yeah, but would she go for a guy who's bald, fat, and short? Do you know what I mean? That's like, so I think what Weed is saying is that if all the, you know, if the baseline boxes are checked, then the baldness doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, exactly.
In some people.
Well,
yeah, I think that's sorry to interrupt. That's why I said like very early on in the stream that like although this entire stream is being about niche market maxing, like all of this advice pretty much only applies to guys in the normie range, because a sub 5 could niche market max all he wants, but that's not going to make a difference. Like if you're a sub 5 and you get tattoos, great, now you're a sub 5 with tattoos. Nothing's changed. You're still going to get rejected. But if you're a normie and you know, you get big muscles and you get tattoos and you grow a beard and, you know, you become this embodiment of this rugged masculine character, then that might, you know, put you into a niche where a lot of women now find you attractive and you got a decent chance. Do you kind of see where I'm getting at?
Yes, I definitely think that women look at like multiple dimensions of a man that's standing in front of her. So it is, you know, if you're saying he has one feature that she says she likes, but then you're going to the other end of the spectrum with everything else about him, like, of course, she's not going to want to go for him because she wants balance. So those are the things that he would want to work on, are those things that, you know, like if he's overweight, like to work on that to be more of a complete package for her. I don't think for anyone, like having one amazing thing is going to put him at the forefront of, you know, getting the girl.
Charlotte, what do you think?
Like,
I would, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, yeah, like that full package means a lot. Like I said, around, you know, if you meet someone at a professional networking conference and they're successful, they're stable. I think you meet someone through friends, you know, they have a good social network, they're a safe person. I think that matters a lot. And I think that opens a lot of doors. I think, yeah, just as a whole, like where that kind of cold and warm approach that you've talked about comes in. I think, you know, obviously there, if you're looking for something a little bit more casual, that warm approach is probably something you shouldn't use because you're going to have to answer to that friend. But I think that like full package of, you know, that social proof, is this person safe? Will they get along with my friends? You know, do they share the same values, as well as, you know, what do they do? Could it be a good, you know, provider, so to speak, is, you know, the word that, is.
Yeah, I think you're on the path to something promising here. Like I've said this quite a few times on previous live streams, that as a man, like as long as you're a normie, you should strive as much as you can to have like as many boxes ticked as possible, because otherwise you're going to get rejected on the thing that you're missing. So like if you're a, you know, 5 or a 6 out of 10 and, you know, your average height or above, like if you get your, you know, social circle together, if you get your finances together, if you get, you know, a decent like status, like high status position, and you get your Instagram like profile and social media looking good, then, you know, there's not going to be really much of an opportunity for a woman to reject you. Like if you're skinny, a woman might reject you on that, but then get muscles, and then a woman can't reject you because of the fact you're skinny. You're basically giving as less of a chance as possible for a woman to reject you. And that's why I think it's always better to have your eggs spread as much as you can across the board, rather than like putting them all in one basket on, you know, one thing. Like it's no good being 6'6" if you're like as small as a twig and you're broke and you're bald as well. Like you want to have like as many things you to have going for you as possible, even if they're not all to the max.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's the same with women, and it always has been that way, is that, you know, prior to dating apps and social media, it's one of those things where there was a time period when guys who were average or even below average could definitely find their looks match. But I think with today's dating market, that's becoming more and more difficult, because of the fact that women have so many choices. And, you know, and if what's the latest stat? I think we've read that it's now up to 70% of couples meet on dating apps.
I haven't heard that figure. The chart that's been floating, is it
one that got released?
Wow, really? I never knew it was that high. The chart that's been floating around in this community for like the last few years, like the last data point, the last data point was like 40%, I believe. But obviously, you know, with lockdown happening in the last couple years, I wouldn't be surprised if the updated figures is as high as 70%. As shocking as that sounds, I wouldn't be surprised by it.
Well, what I've seen a lot of is more niche dating apps. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if, you know, those, I don't know numbers, but I wonder if those are more successful, because for a woman to have so many options, if she's on Tinder, like it's just overwhelming. And she's constantly filtering some of the basic things that are just a no-go for her. Some filters are there, of course, like lifestyle stuff, like if they smoke, you know, because some women, that's a deal breaker for them. So some of that's on there, but like in religion too, I think is oftentimes on there.
Yeah, the ones I've seen is oh sorry, no, you're just talking about the
it's
like
okay.
Oh yeah, no, sorry to interrupt, but I thought you were talking about the like apps, the niche apps. Like the ones that I've seen is ones for Christianity, and like veganism, and maybe a handful of others, like where you can date exclusively people that those. But you were talking about something else. You were talking about
farmers.
There's farmers only. Yeah. Well, I was speaking to those initially, but I'm saying like on the bigger dating apps, it's overwhelming for women. So if they go to the more of the niche dating apps, like if they know they want a certain type, whatever that is, they could go there potentially and have more success. And I think men would likely have more success because she's getting like her major box checked already by going to that niche dating site. And she's not getting overwhelmed by options, which I think she doesn't realize that plays negatively for her in the end, because it makes it harder for her to choose. But it obviously is harder for men too, when women have a ton of options.
Yeah. But I think your
So,
point is really accurate. So if you were Jewish, for example, and you went on,
yeah,
you know, whatever the Jewish dating website is or app is, then at least you know that you're going to find somebody that's going to be in that niche,
yeah,
which is that you say, you know, that Judaism is really important to you,
yeah.
for example.
And I wonder if men realize that they probably have better options on those dating sites rather than them going to the biggest one. Because I can see how going to the biggest one, you might think, well, that allows me to have all my options open.
Yeah. But the
But
reality is that there's way more men on there to
Yeah.
start with.
It just
right,
means the
And so
competition's
it's just-
higher. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the number of options
Right.
is higher, but the competition is 3 times higher. Like the
Yeah.
figures that I've seen is that on Tinder, there's 75% men and only 25% women.
Mhm.
And if you're not in like the top, 5% of that 75%, you may as well forget it. Like, because I think I actually showed the complete breakdown in my video, like 5 reasons to stay off dating apps. And it took into account the population differences on the apps, and the like differences in terms of like how many matches you get based on your like position like in the hierarchy. Like, so if you're a top 50% guy, this is how many matches you'll get. If you're a bottom 20% guy, this is how many matches you'll get. And I think the number I got to was that unless you're in the top 5%, you are in a like deficit like battle. Like you're in a losing battle basically, because if you're not in the top 5%, then there will be at least one male competitor for every one woman on the app. So if you're say like in the top 20%, there might be 2 guys for every 1 woman. If you're in the top 50%, then there might be 10 guys for every 1 woman, and it just gets worse the lower down you go. But it only becomes a like positive split once you're in the top 5%. That's where you might be in a position where there's 2 women for every 1 guy. So that's like beneficial, obviously, because that actually puts you in the position of abundance. But obviously, not many guys meet those criteria to be in the top 5%.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, and that's one of the reasons to stay off the apps for most guys. Especially when women are, Charlotte, I sent you that study or that graph about, kind of what women find attractive, and it's like it was only 20% of the guys they actually found attractive, or not even that much.
Wow.
Something like that. I think as a whole, I think the apps can be bleak on both sides. Just I think with women too, it's like, and I think maybe when men find themselves on a date, they might think like, what did I ever do to this girl? Why does she seem to be like on the defense? Like it seems like she thinks that I'm trying to pull a fast one on her or something. It's because on the apps you're just so worried about someone that's gonna ghost you or screw you over because they have no other ties to you.
Well, this is
and
the
it's just-
flaw. Oh, sorry, you was about to say one more thing. I thought you was wrapped up with your point. I was going to say another thing.
Totally. I was gonna say, yeah, it's overwhelming. Just for women too, where it's just women are seeking out those like warm or just more comfortable cold approaches, because it's like you kind of, I think with a lot of women, they know like if I swipe right, there will be the right swipe, but there's also the mindset that every guy just swipe. You see those like funny videos that people make where they've created a tool to just swipe right on Tinder, like mass swipe. And so it's just like, does this person even like me? Yeah, I have this match, but what's the quality going to be? So I think, the apps are bleak for both sides for both reasons.
I wouldn't necessarily. I was agreeing with you up until the point where you said about like it's the quality. Like I wouldn't necessarily say it's the quality of the guys that women are missing. More about their intentions that they're missing, and this is the main flaw of online dating apps for women. Like the main flaw for men is both quantity and quality. Like they're both atrocious. They're both through the floor. Like men are getting no matches, and of the 1 or 2 matches that they are getting, they're either bots or overweight and just not attractive. Like they'd be 2-3 points below them. So that there's nothing to be had for guys there. But as for women, I think that they got the best of both worlds when it comes to quality and quantity. like I've seen women get matches. Well, even if you're a 5 out of 10 woman, you're going to get matches with guys that are 7s and 8s on a regular basis as well. And you're going to have lots of them. You're going to have lots of 6s, 7s, 8s, guys that are above you. But the main problem that women have is this ambiguity about what a guy's intentions are. And this is the main flaw when it comes to women for online dating apps. And it's actually built into the system, because when you look at, like, historically, the ways that people would approach, mainly it would have mainly been warm approach. Like, I haven't got the graph with me at the second, but it shows, like, we've all seen the chart before, where it shows like how the differences in warm approach and cold approach and online approach has changed in the last 70 years. And back in, like, you know, those days, like 70 years ago, it was almost all warm approach. And the advantage of that is, if a guy is a player, like, say if, you know, you're in an office environment or in a church or anything like this, and a guy, like, is just bonking lots of different girls, like, once he's done that 2 or 3 times, the women are going to talk and they're going to say, oh yeah, I can't believe that guy Austin, he just, like, he didn't talk to me again after you know, we did something last night, like, I can't believe him. Like, and he's going to get caught out, he's going to get weeded out. But on online dating apps, because of this built-in idea of anonymity, it's always going to be a problem that pertains, like, with online dating, and women are never going to know about a guy's intention. So I think the only solution to this would be for women to, like, just either not go on online dating apps at all, like, because it's not worth the risk, or if they do, they need to be 10 times as cautious when it comes to, like, giving up the goods, you know, diplomatically speaking, too early. Like, they need to at least, I would advise women to not do anything you know, intimate with a guy for at least 5, ideally more, like, if you think that you've got him, like, and he's not gonna you know, just leave because he's not interested and he thinks he's gonna be bored. Like, what do you think of that advice? Like, just one more thing. Like, I know this is gonna sound frustrating for a lot of guys to hear who are tuning in, because they think, like, oh, this is only gonna make it more frustrating for me. But, like, you got to look at what the optimal strategy is for both men and women, like, in the dating game, not just, like, one side. But yeah, anyway, carry on now. I'll finish what I was saying.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think that's where that feeling of just the apps feeling so bleak is on the women's side, like, women just walking away from it saying, like, oh, like, if I just, it's going to be another bad date. Just that feeling of hopelessness. Like, yeah, I got this match, or this, you know, ooh, this guy I'm attracted to is attracted to me, but it's going to go nowhere anyway. Like I said about how, you know, sometimes, like, men will find themselves on a date thinking, like, you know, why does it seem like she's interrogating me? Like, what did I ever do to her? And it's because of that feeling of, like, oh, it's going to be another bad date. As that intention piece matters. And, you know, like you said about warm approaches, you know, if your aunt introduces you to someone and that person ghosts you, your aunt can go track them down and, you know, think, like, hey, like, you know, why'd you ghost this person? And like you said about, you know, someone that goes and hooks up with everyone at their church, people are going to hear about it. So I think women are trying to gravitate toward that more. Like, there's, you know, a lot of, like, you know, companies that are starting, like, mixer type events where it's like dating mixers, like matchmakers, that kind of thing. I feel like is becoming more popular because people want that feeling of, like, a warm approach, but they still want to meet more people. And yeah, like, there's that feeling if you're on a dating app date of just being on guard, protecting something. And it's that negative, jaded feeling. I think it's coming from a different place than it might be for men, but just that, you know, feeling of, like, oh gosh, like, this is just going to go nowhere. This guy's intentions, like, he's lying about them. I think that's kind of the feeling on the female side. Did I answer that question correctly?
Yeah, I think there was some good insight there. Todd, Emily, any thoughts?
Well, I was going to ask Emily, you know, and Charlotte, because, you know, one of the questions that you just asked was that, you know, and I think the answer is pretty obvious myself, but I'd like to hear from the women, is that, you know, if they said, you know, I'm not going to engage in intimacy until I have a monogamous relationship, or, you know, or something like that. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe from a guy's position, if he was really into the woman, mm-hmm. he would wait.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good strategy for women, as far as saying, you know, because it weeds out the guys who are just, you know, the player type or whatever.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know how guys take it if you say that very early on. I think that you don't necessarily I mean, I think you should convey as a woman that if you want a relationship, you want a relationship and you're not looking for a one night stand. That should be conveyed early on. But I understand how men, I think, sometimes test to see if you are going to be attracted to them in that way. Like, is that going to be a possibility down the road? You know, that's what I think guys want. And then they sometimes shoot themselves in the foot on dating apps when they try to get that knowledge before a woman even meets them in person. Because women in general, I know for myself, like, I feel zero connection to you over a dating app until we've met in person. Like, there's nothing there. And I don't know if that would be the same thing for men, but like, if you're pushing that topic of having, you know, sexual activity with them before even meeting them in person, that kind of, as a woman, is just a red flag, and it doesn't feel good. It feels like you're not wanting it because of the connection, because there is no connection. You're just wanting it because you want it, and you would want it from anyone. So there's nothing special about me. So I think that if men just like hold that back a bit, especially if they want a relationship, maybe just if they want a relationship, you're going to find that woman that will, you know, go out on dates with you. And I think as a woman at that point, if you're going out on dates, even then, maybe you don't have to say like, I don't want to do anything. Like, this is, nope, we're not going to do this until like date 5. I think you can just live it, you know, just be that person. You don't have to like push that restriction on him, because you want it to still be like fun and playful, and you want it to like naturally progress. And I think that's what men want to feel, is that like it's gonna get there. But you, as a woman, like, typically you need that emotional connection first. And you just have to like wait it out to get there. But I think if you're like, oh, I'm a girl that doesn't do it until date 3.
But can you give other cues though, and just say, you know, for example, I'm really feeling a connection towards you, and just spending your time with that person, or whatever it may be. You know, again, I think if a guy has self-awareness, you know, he'll say, okay, you know, she's just really getting to know me. And it's something that, as evidenced by the fact that she returns my text very relatively quickly. She we plan to go on dates, and she follows through, and things of that nature, versus, you know, like on the 3rd date, you know, there has to be intimacy.
Right. Like, obviously it's not the right man. Like, that man doesn't have the right intentions that you want at that point, if he's leaving by date 3 just because, you know, you guys haven't been intimate.
Just to interject quickly, because I know, Todd, you wanted Charlotte to answer the question as well, and I'll give her a chance as soon as I said this. But like, just to give my 2 cents in this, like, if I was on a date with a woman and she said at the very start, or like, you know, halfway through, yeah, I've slept with guys on the first date previously, but I don't do that anymore. I've come across Emily King's and Charlotte's dating advice on TikTok, and they say that that's actually a bad thing to do. So I have to lay off until at least 3 to 5 dates now. Quite frankly, well, obviously, you know, the second part I was saying about was sarcastic. She obviously not going to say that, but if she said that to me, that she wasn't going to do it until X amount of time, but she did it with other guys in a fifth of that time, I would quite frankly find that as an insult. Like, I would find that insulting. Like, you know, you gave it to these other guys who I'd assume would be Chads for minimal effort, but now you're making me wait. Why is there that disparity? Like, you know, why are you giving these guys special treatment and not me, but you want me to be the person that you eventually want to get into a relationship with? How the hell does that add up?
But is that because of how it makes you feel like you should be in line with the other guys? Or is that because you see her differently because she's saying that? Like, she might be, you know, somebody that's had a lot of partners. It's
the contradiction. Like, how would you feel if a guy said, like, oh, I would usually, you know, pay for a woman, but not on this occasion, because I don't really think that you're attractive enough. I don't think you're worth it. Like, if, you know, he's not going to say that, but, you know, he's going to say it diplomatically. But I think that's what women are saying it's the same diplomacy that they're using when they're saying, oh, I won't sleep with you within the first 5 dates, but I'll sleep with this other guy who's a Chad on the first date. Like, it's all, just diplomacy, I think.
Well, how much of that has to, because that's a pretty, I mean, how many women would come out and say, yeah, the last 5 guys I went on dates with, I slept with on the first date and didn't work out. But I see long-term potential with, so I'm not going to. Like, I just don't see that. Again, maybe I'm completely off base.
They wouldn't say it like that, but the way I've usually seen it play out is that the woman, like, I would say that this is a bad dating habit that a lot of women do, but I think just the sheer number of women that do it anyway, despite the bad thing about it, is like bringing emotional baggage with guys that screwed them over on the very first date. Like, I'm sure many people will, maybe not people that are watching this stream, but guys with a lot of dating experience will be able to tell stories about how they've been on first dates with women, and they've just told stories about, oh, this guy I went on the first date with, he ghosted me after the first one, after we slept together on the first date. Like, women do this all the time, and I'm sure both of you girls can agree with that, because you're actually in the field and you probably deal with women's dating issues all of the time, and that's one of the main things that they would do.
Yeah, I agree that that's like something that we hear about. I just think that, like, for somebody to have a problem with the woman then, like, changing her perspective on things and voicing that, like, I think it's okay, because it's her changing who she is. I mean, it's like the guy talking about something that he's changed, right? Like, oh, I don't drink anymore because it was becoming an issue on the first date. It's showing a vulnerability, which some people, maybe that's not the greatest thing on the first date, but a lot of people, I think, would be open to it. But for you to have like a problem with that, like if she had a problem with him not drinking, I don't know, I think that says more about, well, that's not a good match then. Like, she doesn't care about him internally as a person in his journey. So if a man has a problem with her deciding that she's not doing that anymore, she used to do that. And I kind of agree that she shouldn't probably be saying that on the first date, really. But if she does, like, and the guy has a problem with that, I think that he's seeing her and viewing her a little bit as an object, I want to say. Like, it just feels like that to me. Because if you are thinking about her as a person, like, that's okay. She's changed. I could see it where maybe you'll have a problem because that means that she has a history. She might have a history of a lot of partners. She might have a history of like having some issues emotionally that might be a little scary for you to kind of dive into. I would get that. I would understand like why that would be an issue.
What do you think, Charlotte?
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be an odd first date conversation. I think obviously no one's going to say that. No one's going to say that exactly the way we said it. Like, oh, like, I usually pay for first dates for women, but not for you. Or, the female version of it. Like, I usually go home on the first date, but not for you. I think as a whole, just, bringing that, I think I said before where, some men will go into dates and, why is this woman so against me? Like, why is she so like, frustrated? It's because of that like baggage. I always say like, shouldn't be bringing baggage into your first dates. I think there's some part of that does become those vulnerable conversations later on, like, hey, like, many dates in, you're pursuing a relationship, like, here's kind of the rundown about me. What is your relationship history, like, what's your relationship with sex look like? I think those are conversations that do happen down the line. I think people grow and change. I think it also depends like how old you are.
I was just going to say that too. That's very age dependent. Yeah. I don't know too many 40-year-olds that are sleeping together on the first date. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get to know each other and you build upon that.
Yeah, but I'm guessing a lot of them,
university, it's different.
No, but I'm guessing a lot of those 40-year-olds, when they were in their teens and 20s and at university, they probably was indulging into that behavior. Do you think like people kind of forget about it by the time they're in their 40s? Like, because I'm guessing, so like if people were still in their 20s and then like it was just like last week that a woman went on a date with a guy and she slept with the the person on the first night. If she's now on a date with a new guy and is trying to tell him to wait, then I'm guessing that's going to be a lot more problematic, and it's not going to sit well with the man.
Well, I mean, the odds of that is probably slim, because if somebody is, if that's kind of how they go about their life, unless they had some huge epiphany in therapy, the reality is they're probably not going to change who they are in a week. Do you know what I mean? I think that's more of an evolution over a long period of time, where you get to the point where you're in your, late 20s, early 30s, then it's one of those things where you're probably dating more intentionally, and you're going to say, I don't want to involve myself with hookup culture. I want to, try to meet a good guy. And how I'll realize that, well, one of the factors will be, how willing is he to get to know me as a human being before he wants to get, in her pants.
Well, this kind of widens up to like a bigger issue that a lot of guys speak about in this community as a whole. That they say that a lot of women nowadays, they get to their 30s wanting a guy to commit to them, and they will use phrases such as like, I'm dating with a purpose now. I want to date with like seriously. But then during their 20s, when arguably, well, I would say almost certainly they were in their prime, like looks wise, and they were more attractive. Like then, like when you look at them now, they're 10 years older, but they're now demanding more. They want guys to take them more seriously. But why should guys take them seriously when they haven't exactly earned it based on their behavior in the last 10 years when they've been partying?
Well, yeah, I'm a big believer myself, and like how you start off in your 20s, you got to think about that. Like that does impact you down the road. And obviously I believed in that. I was with one person because I was married all through my 20s. But I think that even if I had been single, like I held that opinion that I just didn't want the like emotional trauma buildup of having like a ton of partners, because I think that does affect you even down the road.
Well, it's much more difficult to pair bond for both genders.
Yeah.
If that's your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's been scientifically proven.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really not hookup culture. I don't think benefits either gender, for sure. It's just one of those things where. So I'm wondering, because I'm really not in that sphere. Why is it going on so much? Like, to hear from the women, like, and I'm not saying that you guys are involved in that, but I'm sure you have friends or people that you do know that are involved with that. And so what are they getting out of that? Is it just a self-esteem booster, validation?
Well, some of it is that, but I think that at least on social media, what it seems to be, because they'll openly talk about it, some women will, talk about their roster of men. And I think that's because they think that's like taking the power back, like they're almost trying to do what they thought men were doing, or maybe that men were doing, and are doing like a power play.
But that really goes contrary to everything about evolutionary psychology, because women have much more to lose with sexual interchange than men.
Well,
women can get pregnant.
I actually made a video. I can't remember exactly how many reasons it was. It might have been 8 reasons why hookup culture is on the rise. And one of the things was literally what you just mentioned there. Well, a counter to that reason is because, yes, women can get pregnant, but now there's birth control. So, that's not really a factor anymore. But I would say the biggest factor by far, which is causing hookup culture to rise, is because of a certain movement beginning with F and ending in ism, is perpetuating this idea that it's okay for women, to just do what they want, like go completely wild and crazy in their 20s, sleep with whoever they want, and it's not going to be a problem for them. It's actually empowering for them. And I think, I was about to say, I'm sure we can all agree with that, but I'll ask the question just to hear what your thoughts are, because I'm not 100% sure on what your guys' thoughts will be. Charlotte, it looks like you're about to say something.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I'll jump in first. I I don't know why that's something that's become such a popular thing to push, because I don't think there's anything empowering about it. I have, like I said, coming up on 30, have friends at all different points in their life. Have friends that are, they claim they're very far from the idea of getting married, starting a family. And I've gotten those like Sunday morning calls, and they're empty. And I think they sometimes hope like, this connection will be different, something will change. And it's bleak, and it wears you down too. It's, you talk about going into your 30s, like maybe you being single, or and trying to date, trying to find a partner. I think there's a big difference getting there. Maybe you've had like one long-term relationship that just didn't work out, or maybe you were married. Your story's a bit different. That's one thing. Like I see those people a lot of times go into healthy marriages because they know how to have a healthy relationship, but when they've had like so many partners, or they don't know that like healthy relationship side of it, it's damaging, and it hurts your self-esteem. It doesn't help anyone. I think also just the disposability of dating apps, like I'm in a bigger city, so I see it. It's really damaging to everybody.
Just for anyone that was wondering, the term that I was referring to, starting with F and ending in ism, is fascism. Actually, that's what the movement I thought that is being perpetuated in recent years.
We knew that.
Good try.
We knew that.
Yes, but I still don't really. I'm trying to understand, again, as an older guy, what the appeal. You say it's empowerment, but I get that birth control, but still, it's one of those things where there's STDs, there's reputation. That kind of comes along with that, and it's something that I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I agree. It's dangerous, and to me,
and safety, just like Charlotte's been saying. Do you know what I mean? You go to some guy's house, you don't know if he's what he's gonna do.
My other side of it, honestly, how I see it is that the hookup culture, like, it's just boring. That does not interest me. Like, most women need to view it that way, I think, because having it in a relationship and the way that you can emotionally connect is just a whole nother level. And I think that once you've experienced that, that's probably when people become more of the like serial relationship goers, because that's what they're seeking. The one night stands, it just like, it doesn't cut it, I think especially for women being so like emotionally bonded.
Well, I remember when I was in university, and I had to ask I asked my friends the question, would you rather have sex with a woman, but you wouldn't be able to tell anybody about it? Or would you rather not have sex with a woman and be able to tell people about it? And most guys who are honest, because they usually are a little intoxicated, would say they would rather have the ability to tell someone about it.
Oh.
Believe it or not. And again, I don't know if things have changed since then, but it's one of those things where I think that's kind of where that validation piece comes in, where you feel like you're wanted in some way. And so I could see that, especially maybe for a lot of females who are vulnerable, and maybe their self-esteem isn't the best. It's one of those things where they can get that hit of dopamine, where this guy, is attracted to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be off base. I'm not a woman.
I think it does happen. I feel like I've heard of women that have fallen into that trap, and they've done it multiple times. And then, I don't know, they have a moment, I think, in which they realize that that's what they're seeking. And at some point it has to end, and they have to find that life satisfaction somewhere else, and that confidence somewhere else.
But you say it's boring, and obviously I don't know if boring would be the right word. I would say that it's I think there's an excitement to it, but at the same time, there's also a shallowness to it. So it's one of those things where after, from the guy's point of view, after it's over, it's one of those things where you really evaluate, the post-nut syndrome. But it's still something that, you don't feel like you have that connection. And so I just look at it like it's enhanced masturbation, like literally you're using another human being to get off with. So it can have that excitement, but the problem is that because it's so shallow, it's something that and if it's for validation purposes, it's a bottomless pit. Like you're never gonna be. It's like, like how much money do you need to say that you have enough money.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
But I think for women that, like, if they're missing that emotional connection, and this is kind of viral on social media too, is where women will almost insult a man for her non-peak. And I think it probably has more to do with the fact that she doesn't know him or doesn't feel connected to him. That's why she's not peaking. And that is why I say boring.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you could just say it's you know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where women usually, in order to orgasm, they have to have a connection, some kind of pair bonding with that guy, or at least a comfortability level.
Right.
But if you're drunk after the bar, the odds of that happening is extremely low, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I was just gonna say, I know that like you guys are in a different time zone, but it's getting almost close to 12, and like I felt in the last like half an hour that I'm getting quite tired. So I'm hoping that we can wrap up this stream in the next like 5-10 minutes, ideally. That would get us to the 2-hour mark, which would be like pretty much perfect. That's like how the length of time that I usually do most of my streams. So I think if we finish off like with the topic that we started off with, I know that we did drift into a bit of other sort of topics of discussion in the last 25 minutes, but if we could bring it back to like the niche market topic that we started off the video with, then I think that'll be fantastic. And yeah, people are saying in the comments right now, yeah, if we could bring it back to that, then that'll be awesome. So Charlotte, I haven't heard much from you with regard to niche markets, obviously, because you joined in the second half of the stream. So what's your thoughts on niche markets?
Niche markets, I think the ultimate, I think a good move, rather than trying to be the best at everything, is be the best at what you're good at. Like, be the best version of yourself and put yourself in a market where you can sell yourself well and perform well. I think like my biggest example, just thinking Austin, Texas, liberal city in greater Texas. Have a friend, gentleman who's bald, beard, conservative in a big city. If he goes out to big city Austin and goes out, he might not have the best luck meeting women. He goes to the country bar, he learned how to two-step. He meets a lot of women that way.
Isn't Austin in Texas, isn't it?
Austin is in Texas.
I thought Texas is like a really red state, isn't it? I thought it's
so the capital is a major city. So very liberal city in the middle of a conservative state.
Oh, okay. So that's the exception.
Yeah, all the podcasters are living there now too. So that's where Rogan lives. That's where Williamson lives. There's a bunch more, but yeah, it's this odd city because it's it actually, that isn't it, keep Austin weird or something like that.
That's the motto.
Yeah, but it's this very liberal city surrounded by Texas, which is mostly conservative, which is but a lot of people are moving there nowadays.
Yeah,
because they want to kind of probably have that nice weather and just the music scene and just the overall liberal quality. But one of the things you said, Charlotte, I don't think you had an opportunity to talk about, is when you live in those bigger cities, you have more options, but you also have more competition. So yes. What advice would you give as far as like if you are living in a bigger city, like for niche markets?
Yeah, I think make your city feel smaller. So that's where find where you perform well and make the most friends and have the most shared values. So I think if you think back to that friend going to the country bars, learning how to do the country two steps, he's in his boots, has kind of like this old school like sheriff look to him, like looks like Rip Wheeler from Yellowstone. So women who are into that look, they love it. So doing things like that, like learning that talent, going where you perform well, where you're the coolest guy in the room versus going into the place where you're with every other guy. So if you're if you're religious, join a church, join groups, join co-ed groups, take those friendships and be a good host, like as you host like gatherings and whatnot, tell people to bring their friends. So make your city and community feel smaller. I would say, like, as much as like you feel like you're meeting a million people when you go out to a party, Don't make your only activity partying. That's also where that like hookup culture, that feeling of emptiness comes in. But what you can do, whatever you can do to make your city feel smaller is kind of my advice there. And there's usually communities like that where you can find many like-minded people.
I think another factor that you was talking about just a minute ago, when you was talking about like if you've got a certain political like belief system that you should go here, and if you've got a different political belief system you should go here. I think it also depends on what you're looking for as well, either a relationship or casual dating, because I would say generally people that are more liberal, or if you're watching from anywhere in Europe or the UK, liberal is an American term, and it's like it basically means leftist in the UK, which I know is like more harsh in America, but like that's basically what it is for anyone in the UK. Like usually people that are that way leaning politically, they're usually a bit more easygoing when it comes, like they're a bit more loose, they're a bit more likely to engage in hookup culture, when I would say that people that identify as conservatives and are more right-leaning are more likely to be relationship oriented. So if you're looking for relationships, and I would say it would actually be good advice to go to some places more conservative. But if you're looking for hookup culture, then maybe moving to a place like Austin where people are more liberal might be a good idea. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, you should move to Salt Lake City and become a Mormon. Then you're going to be all set. That was a joke, but there's true, because they usually get married when they're 18.
Oh, really?
A lot. Well, I mean, that's a mass generalization too, but definitely they get married younger. But yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things where, first of all, I think if you're not in a big city, you should, and if you're in a really small place, then you might want to consider moving, just because I think the options are going to be limited. And so I think that's the first thing as far as niching down is saying, okay, so because if you live in New York City, for example, like there's every group imaginable. There's a bunch of conservatives, there's a bunch of liberals, there's any group, because it's there's 15 million people or whatever. So it's something where, and I'm not advising everybody to move to New York City, but I'm saying, like, if you're in a bigger city, then you're more likely to find your niche. I guarantee there's probably in New York City, there's 30 different maybe 300 different meetings of people who just like to play board games or something like that. Where if you're living in small town USA, your options are going to be really limited. But this is pretty obvious.
Yeah. But obviously, it was going back to the point you said about earlier, where the competition will also be higher the bigger the city is as well. So it kind of swings in roundabouts. Anyway, I think it's been a good stream. Like I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed like having you guys on, and I've enjoyed Charlotte coming on for the second half. I think there's been some good contributions all around. But I'm happy to wrap up the stream in a second. Does anyone have any final thoughts to say before I close it up?
I think the only thing I'll say about niche dating is, like, make sure that it's the things that are really important to you that you're going for. So, like, if politics is not important to you, like, don't think about moving states or moving cities, or board games are, kind of a thing that you enjoy, but that's not like the number one thing. Like, don't niche down on the wrong things.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying is try to figure out who you are, and that's having self-awareness, and then saying, okay, this is who I am, this is what I like, and so I'm going to put myself in environments and try to be around people that will appreciate the same things. Because the warm environment is always going to give the normie, or even the sub 5, the best chance for connection, and stay off the apps.
Yeah, thanks for the closing thoughts. Right, I'm going to wrap up the stream right now. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, thanks a lot, Wheat.
Thanks, Wheat. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Right, there.